I started seeing that things that I had held respect for and things that I had actually felt were honorable, they really were nothing but people trying to boost their own egos within the system. They're a bunch of men that were never going home, that had life to do, that were trying to use people like me that did have a date to get them money on the streets, or they send somebody out there to kill somebody just so they could tell one of their partners that they had somebody killed out there. Like they had some kind of power. And it didn't really sit well with me that I was going to be used as a puppet like that.
One thing right now.
As a correctional officer, I can definitely say that there are times that I really respect people that decide to drop out prison gangs. Now, there's always a host of different reasons why, but there are definitely times that I respect the heck out of why people drop out of these prison gangs. Now, I'm sure a majority of the time that you hear about people dropping out of prison gangs or defecting is going to be from former inmates or current inmates. But as you know, with this channel, you're going to get a different perspective from a CO that works inside. Now, I can tell you that there's been many times that I've seen inmates over the years PC up, lock it up, whatever you want to call it, right? And there's been times where I've had like real serious, heartfelt conversations with these inmates, and they just said they had enough. So we're going to talk about that in this video. And again, you're going to get a totally different perspective of this. And I'm also going to show some video clips of different inmates over the years, whether it be past or present, that talked about reasons why they decided to defect from the gang. So let's get right into this. But let me make this clear, even though the disclaimer's at the bottom. I'm an idiot, and I'm an idiot in law school. So anything and everything I talk about in this video, it is my own words, the words of an idiot. I don't speak for any government entity. And also, I do want to make it clear, I definitely want to make this clear that no matter what inmate decides to drop out or PC up or whatever, I'm going to treat them all the same. I'm going to show them respect as a human being. I'm just talking about there are times where I can really respect when an inmate decides to PC up. So let me start off with this quick story. I remember, man, there was this dude, and he was a Southsider, and he just had enough, right? So this just has to be the most slickest and smoothest PC move I've ever seen. So, Southsiders and usually inmates, period, they're going to have a witness with them when they have to come and talk to the police. So this inmate was walking up with his witness, but it was like he was like 1 or 2 steps ahead of the witness. And I kid you not, he opened his mouth and he mouthed it, "I can't be here." And I could see and read his lips clearly. And I was like, what the heck? So then he came up with some type of arbitrary conversation. So then I made it seem like, okay, somebody called for you, got to go over here, whatever, right? And so as I walked him out, he felt embarrassed. And he was like, I never had to do this before in my life. But he said, I'm tired of this life. He's like, I only got a little bit of time until I get out. My kids are growing up on me. My wife is out there. I don't know if she's being loyal to me. He was like, I'm just tired of this life, man. I just want something different. I put in so much work over the years, and it's like, they don't care. So I'm tired. And I respected that. So there are times, now I'm going to make it clear, right? And then we'll get into the videos. Inmates that decide to check in or PC up or go out backwards or whatever you want to call it, right? Whenever they decide to do that, when they do it for the reasons of like they ran up a gambling debt or drug debt or different things like that, it's kind of hard to believe that they're going to really turn their lives around, because the basis for them choosing to leave the gang, it's not really an honorable thing. You know what I'm saying? But for people that say, hey, I'm tired of this life, I've dedicated so much, I've lost so much, and I got nothing in return, I respect that. So let me get into the first video.
When you come into prison, it's generally just like being drafted into the army. As a white man, there's certain expectations you're going to have, as in, working out, keeping physically fit, to passing messages to where even if they say like there's a sexual predator on the yard and you don't get to raise your hand, they tell you to do something, it's expected of you to do. And that goes pretty much with anything. You don't have your own, you're not your own man.
Now, let me pause this real quick to say this dude is telling it like a TI is. Now, I know there's some cars that, they're going to politic harder or not as hard. But when you go into prison, ain't no, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm not going to listen to nobody. I'm going to just do my own time. Screw y'all. It doesn't work like that. You're going to have to follow somebody's orders.
You have to abide by the rules that have been laid down from long before I started doing time, and and they vary from prison yard to prison yard, basically, but they're all basically the same rules that apply to it. They used to not get mad at you or this or that, and there was no repercussions if you couldn't do a stabbing or you couldn't make sharpen it, or you didn't want to do that. You were just treated as a cast off. But now it's pretty much it's forming into you have to do things now. It's mandatory. There's more dog eat dog. It's like there's a lot of more bad calls now being done as a bad call, being like, this guy wasn't a rat, but by word of mouth, somebody else that may have had a problem with this guy can say, hey, that guy's a rat, and then boom, that dude's taken down and he's not even a rat in his life. He just he's expired. He's dead.
All right, so as you can see from that was an inmate that was providing some type of debriefing video. But that it really is true. And that weighs on people heavily. Imagine somebody that's been in prison 10, 15, 20 years, or even less, you know what I'm saying? But they realize and they come to that understanding that your life, it's really not yours. You are like the property of this certain gang, and you got to get down with the get down. Now, let me put in a little caveat right here, right? Now, traditionally, like the white cars and the Hispanic cars, they go really hard when it comes to the regulations and all the bylaws and stuff. Whereas from my experience with the black cars, they do have some type of structure, but they definitely don't go hard in the paint in the same way as far as, blood in, blood out. And if you don't follow these orders, we're going to take you out and then we're going to kill your kids. We're going to kill your parents, all that type of stuff. They don't get down like that. You know what I'm saying? So the politics, from my experience with the black cars, is not that severe. But when it comes to the white cars and the Hispanic cars, they mean that business. So let's move on to the next video. All right, so this video is about a former high-ranking member in the Nuestra Familia, and he did this video. I got the credit right here. I didn't come up with it. It was Business Insider, but take a listen to it.
This is 5 years later now. People are still speculating that I'm cooperating. Come on, man, it's 5 years and there's no police reports, there's nothing. So somebody that had an agenda pushed the issue with leadership up in the Bay. They put a green light on me. Nothing happened. It was literally the dude that tried to, honoring the green light, tried to push a phone over in front of me on the tier. I still held my mud. I still wanted to be a part of the organization.
Now, let me pause it right there for a second. There's a lot of people that's on the street that's flirting with this lifestyle. They don't know. And I've seen it firsthand as a CO. There is a lot of treachery and betrayal that goes on in these prison gangs. It is a lot. And you can see people, you might think they're best of buds. You might think they're inseparable, joint at the hip. And the next thing you know, one person might put the green light on the other person to take them out. And again, I've seen this live and in living color. So I'm going to provide you from a different perspective and a different angle from the lens of a CO, how this stuff goes on.
17 months later, they put me back on the active tier. I functioned for another 2 years, put another green light on me. And the second time it was just as bad as the first time. Somebody wanted to act like they were trying to spear me through the bars. The spear was like 2 feet too short, didn't have a tip on it. My wife, she died. She ended up dying. My mom ended up dying. She passed away.
Now, let me pause that real quick. I can't tell you how many times, man, that dudes have had to not be able to go to their mother or father or whoever's funerals because they were locked up inside. Not only just because they were doing time, but because some of them, they were due to go home a long time ago. But because they were involved in the politics and, they had to get down with the get down, it prolonged their time. And I've talked to I've seen grown men you know, when they're on the yard, they're big and tough. They're bad. They stab people up. They stomping them out. But I've seen those same men when they're by themselves and they're on that phone call where they're able to talk to their family members and talk about whoever it was that passed away. I've seen them break down and cry like a baby. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. I'm just saying that because they're human. So just for him to know that, okay, he had lost these two people that was important to him while he was locked up, I know that it had to be like psychological warfare on him. And I know the authorities knew that as well, and they would use that against him in hopes that he would turn.
So they did this at a time when I was already in a dark place. You know what I mean? I'm looking at life. I was getting ready to plead out, but then they pulled that. So I was like, you know what? I'm done, man. The district attorney wants to wash me up. You know, I'm in bad standings now with the NF. What do I do? Law enforcement again came up and they're like, you know what? Loyalty only goes so far. Come on, man. I agreed that I was done and that, you know, that I would talk to him. So that's what I did from that point on. I denounced my membership and, you know, I agreed to cooperate. However,
now look at it from his perspective, right? Now, again, I'm not a gang member. I'm not an inmate. So I'm not bound by these rules of, you know, what they have. I'm just talking to you about this from the perspective and the lens of a CO. So just imagine, right? You dedicated all your life and your time to this organization, and then a mishap or miscommunication comes up, and then law enforcement gets in the middle and they turn each other against each other. And now all of a sudden, now you're out on bad graces. Your name is in the hat and they got a green light on you. How would you feel, right? If you felt like there was no amount of talking that could be done to try to repair whatever damage that was done, right? You might just say, you know what? I've had enough. I've dedicated so much. I've provided so much help to this organization and they left me hanging. So there are times, again, where law enforcement, they are going to wait until you're like at rock bottom to where you kind of realize that all of this is a facade and nobody really cares about you in these factions.
the cooperation that I gave was just, I didn't go in as a percipient witness. Everybody that I got arrested with was gone. So I went in there basically talking about what I'm talking about now, how gangs work. The judge struck 2 of my strike priors, which took me out of the 3 strikes and gave me 16 years, 8 months. I've been in the county jail almost 10 years. None of that had to happen. If the NF would have let me fight my case, I would have been a big dummy sitting in Pelican Bay right now with a life sentence.
All right, let me rewind that little part back again.
County jail almost 10 years. None of that had to happen. If the NF would have let me fight my case, I would have been a big dummy sitting in Pelican Bay right now with a life sentence. Yeah, I was one of the true believers. But, you know, by them pulling the trigger twice, I felt betrayed.
This type of stuff, it happens all the time. And it's like, it's the same scenarios, the same situations. The only thing that changes is the names and the faces. And that's one of the crazy things about a prison, right? The prison, the structure of it, the color, all that stuff, none of that changes. It is the same. But the thing that makes prison so spicy or it makes it so different is because it's different faces. It's the same type of drama, but it's just different faces. Sometimes the same reactions, sometimes different reactions. But yeah, this happens all the time. Now let's watch the next video. Now on this part, I want you to pay special attention to, because like I said, there are certain cars, they're going to go extremely hard in the paint because that's just their rules. I ain't got nothing to do with making up their rules, but this is this inmate, it's his own words. I don't know if he's still alive, whatever the case may be, but sometimes these gangs, they will go to great lengths to get even.
One thing right now with the Mexican mafia, they're targeting families now because of us dropping out and disassociating ourselves from the prison gang. My ex-wife just got killed. From my understanding, Los Angeles authorities down there, they pretty much have a feeling who it is, right? And I know the individual myself, and I'm pretty much assuming that he did commit the crime. But
now I'll keep it real and I'll say I've never talked to an inmate that had this happen where they defected and then they went after somebody else's family member and they talked about it. Now, I've heard of stories, but I've never actually talked to an inmate that actually experienced it. But as you can see, it does happen.
And you think you know the particular motive or the reason why he did?
Oh yeah, definitely, because he was my Sally, and he was my foot soldier. His agenda was, he's from the same gang that I was in the streets, but being that he's a youngster, he always wanted to be in good standings with me and other members of the Mexican Mafia. So he's gonna go out there and do what he has to do.
Why are you talking to?
All right, so you got to see that video. That is the lengths that they will go to. Now, again, I never seen it where I talked to an inmate where they had experienced that, but I've heard, numerous stories of it having. So again, a lot of people, they'll get their information about, how dropouts, they're no good, they're the scum of the earth, things of that nature. Now, I'm not defending people that drop out. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of a CO, and I see all the dirt that goes on. I see the betrayal. I see all of that. And I think it just comes down to sometimes people, they just end up getting it, and they realize that they're just a number to the organization. The organization doesn't care about them, and they're just tired of doing the organization's bidding where they don't feel like they're getting anything in return. And again, this is true, right? I've talked to several inmates where they've lost time because they were doing the bidding of the agency, not the agency, well, their agency, you can say, doing the bidding of their organizations, and it got them more time. They lost out on birthdays, they lost out on anniversaries, funerals, all that stuff. Just imagine, right? I've had to sit there where, inmates, they get the obituary that comes in from their mom's funeral or their dad's funeral because they couldn't be there. You know what I'm saying? That's devastating. And whether people want to understand it or not, that weighs heavily on you. And I've seen it again. I have seen grown men who are tatted up from the neck or the face down, got all these war scars on their bodies. They are bona fide warriors, but I have seen them break down and cry like a baby because it's like they have realized, like, I have lost so much of my life. I have lost so many of my good years to something that just doesn't matter, right? Now, again, you got to make your own decision whether you want to be in the gang or not. Obviously, that's not a good road to go down because I'm talking to you from the perspective of what I see. I get to see behind the scenes. I got a front row seat, and my perspective is going to be different. It's just inherently going to be different because I'm on the CO side. Now, let's move. Okay, so when this video was produced, SHU policies were a lot different, right? Where you could just leave somebody in SHU for an indeterminate period of time. They could be back there for 1,000 years and it wouldn't matter. But listen to what this guy has to say, because there is a whole generation of inmates where they have to spend like years in solitary confinement because they were validated members, they were gang leaders, whatever it may be. That's a hard thing to do. And I don't even judge inmates, because you'll have inmates that they end up going crazy. They lose their minds. I don't judge them, because I would probably lose my mind too, man. If I had to live in a room the size of, my half bathroom, and I couldn't come out except for 1 hour a day, and I had to do that, for 10, 15, 20 years, I might lose my mind over that. So listen to this clip.
There's got to be more. This SHU life is racking up to 15 years here, and it's like, you know what? This isn't.
Sorry, man. I got to run it back, man. I'm a little sorry on my skills.
This SHU life is racking up to 15 years here, and it's like, you know what? This isn't much of a life. This is more or less an existence, and the people that I'm believing in, or the regime that I'm believing in, is actually turning out just to have no actual foundation that they've built their structure on. There's got to be.
All right, so you got to hear from this particular inmate that did 15 years in solitary confinement. That is a long time to be in solitary confinement. Again, when inmates start having psychological problems, and I don't judge them, man, because again, if I was locked in a bathroom the size of my half bathroom, a room, and I couldn't come out for years, that would probably drive me crazy. That will probably drive the average person crazy. So you definitely have to count up the costs, man. when you decide that you want to get involved in this activity. And for all the viewers out there that's never done time, well, let me play this other video and then I'll wrap it up.
Why are you talking to law enforcement?
I want to take this opportunity to try to start to make amends for some of the things that I've done against our society. And secondly is because it really helps me being a parolee, being a felon. If I have things in my file that say that I've worked with law enforcement and I've helped you guys, it helps me in the future to get jobs. It shows that I am rehabilitated and I'm not just out there biding my time until I commit another crime.
All right, so I showed that last clip for a reason, because that's the debriefing process, right? If you decide that you want to defect from your organization, you're going to have to give good cause as to why you want to do it. You're going to have to provide information, things of that nature. But one thing I can say, right, I wanted to show this video for a reason, because I look at some of the other prison channels and sometimes they'll talk about people that drop out. And some of the channels, you know, they keep it real and they'll say, hey, man, I respect the ones that get out of the gang and they don't get involved in anything. They walk the straight and narrow. But then you have some channels that talk bad about them, or whatever the case may be, right? Now, in the comment sections, I'll go and I'll look and I'll see people that they say things. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people that's in these comment sections that co-sign on, you know, talking about people that drop out of gangs and they call them, oh, yeah, they're rats and they don't deserve to live and this, that, and the other. This is all I'm going to say, right? It's easy to say that when you've never been to prison, right? It's really easy for you to try to co-sign what a particular channel might say when you've never been in prison, right? These people that was in this video and other people that I've met over the years, I'm talking about people, they've been in prison for a long time. They didn't just start, you know, their prison term like within 2 years and then they decided to defect. No, they've been down double-digit years. You know what I'm saying? But again, when you see grown men cry, excuse me, and they're just like, man, I've wasted so much of my life and my kids don't even know me. All of these different things, like, man, that adds and that weighs on a man's psyche. I just don't know how else to explain it. But I just say, I can respect the heck out of people that say, you know what, I'm dropping out of this life because I don't want to do no more bidding. I've lost so much and I just want to enjoy my life. If I got a chance to get out, I want to spend the rest of my time on trying to get out. And I've ran into some inmates a few times where I seen them, but they didn't see me. And then there was like once or twice where we seen each other. But in those instances, it was just casual, but you could tell like they were just appreciative of their freedom. And there's been other officers that they've ran into people on the streets. And when your freedom is taken away from you and for such a long time, and then when you think you're doing this because you're bettering your organization, and then you realize that you don't matter to the organization, that can really affect you, man. That can really mess you up. So I just say, hey, if you decide to drop out of a gang because you want to turn your life around, hey, I respect the heck out of that. But if you're dropping out of a gang or whatever because you ran up a gambling debt or drug debts, things of that nature, I'm just going to say, whatever, you know, because the motives or the basis of why you want to leave, it's not for honorable reasons, in my opinion. It's just because you're trying to avoid getting beat up, right? Or stabbed up or killed. It doesn't mean that you have any intentions whatsoever of trying to turn your life around, if that makes sense. So just be thankful, man, for the people that have their freedom. Again, it's easier for you to make all these tough guy comments on YouTube and all these other social media platforms when you've never been locked up. And it's, I don't know. And there's sometimes, man, when you're like, might be doing rounds or you might be talking to an inmate, and then the thought could come across your mind like, dang, like, what if I was in here doing time? And what if I was down for 25 years? Like, how many people could have died? Or would my wife have stayed with me and been faithful all them years? I mean, it is a lot, man. I'm telling you. So just know, man, just because you didn't experience it or you didn't come to that realization that you're just a pawn in this big old game, unless you've gone through that, you really, really won't understand. So that's all I got for this video. I might get some hate for this video. Who knows? But I just wanted to put this together, man, because there are some people that they need to understand the other side of why people drop out, because there are people on YouTube, they talk about dropouts and they say, oh, well, they dropped out because they're no good, all this kind of stuff. But that's not always the case, right? It could just be they're tired of being a pawn. They're tired of being used and abused, and they want to try to live their life the best they can with the hopes of getting out to enjoy some type of freedom. So until the next one, man, holla at your boy.